Today our goal is to take what we know about rational expressions and add that knowledge to adding and subtracting. So we know how to add and subtract fractions in general, and we also know how to simplify rational expressions. So if we put both of those together, then that's our goal for today. Before we do that, let's kind of remind ourselves how to simplify or how to add and subtract fractions though. So if I give you the fractions 2/3 plus 4/9, remember to add fractions, you have to have the same denominator. So first we need to get a common denominator. And you're always going to do this by multiplying. Okay, so I'm going to take 2/3, and I know if I multiply 3 times 3, I'll end up with 9 in the denominator, and then they'll be the same. But I'm only allowed to do that if I multiply the top and bottom of that fraction. So when we do that, we have 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 4/9. Okay, now, to add, you're going to add the numerators and keep the denominator. That's why we had to get them the same, because it's going to stay the same for our answer also. So the 9th is going to stay, but 6 plus 4 is 10. Okay, now after you have that, you look to see if you can simplify. Well, 10 over 9 doesn't simplify. So that's just a quick refresher on how do we add fractions in general. Now we're going to apply that information to rational expressions. So still the same basic rule, you have to have a common denominator. If you have a common denominator, then you can add just like we added these fractions here. So question number 1, first we're going to say, is there a common denominator? So if you look at your denominator, 3x, 3x, yes. So you're just going to add the fractions. So 5 plus 4 is 9 over, the denominator stays the same. Okay, now next, can you simplify? There's no plus and minus signs here, so there's only a single term in both numerator and denominator. And when we look at 9 over 3x, we can look at this 9 over 3 and simplify 9/3. Well, 9/3 is just 3 over 1. So really this simplifies to 3 over a single x. All right, number 2. First, we're going to see, does it have a common denominator? So if I look at the denominators, x squared minus 3, x squared minus 3. Yes, I have common denominators, so we're going to add the fractions. So I have 6x plus 5 plus 3x minus 1 all over. Remember, the denominator stays the same. Now, from here, I can combine like terms. Oops, I didn't mean to erase. So 6x plus 3x is 8x. 5 minus 1 is 4 over x squared minus 3. Oh, 6 plus 3 is 9. My bad. So 9x minus 4 over x squared minus 3. Okay, now, when you're asking yourself, can it simplify? You either have to have things that can be factored so that the factors can simplify, or all 4 of your terms would have to have the same thing in common. Well, 9, 4, 1, and negative 3 don't have anything in common. 9x minus 4 can't be factored, and x squared minus 3 can't be factored because there's no two numbers that would multiply to negative 3 and add to 0. So because we cannot simplify it or factor it, then this is as far as we can go. All right, number 3. First, do we have a common denominator? (3x minus 1, 3x minus 1), and we do. Okay, so we're going to subtract. Now here's the deal with subtracting. When you subtract fractions, you have to, don't forget, distribute negative 1. So really this is minus 1 times all of that. Okay, so when we write it as the same fraction, so we're going to subtract. So I know that I have 3x minus 1 as my denominator is going to stay. I have 3x squared minus 5 minus 2x squared plus 3x plus 2. So you have to do, if you have a minus sign, you need to make everything on that next part minus. Now we can combine like terms. So I have a 3x squared minus a 2x squared, which leaves me with a 1x squared or just x squared. I have a 3x, and then I have a minus 5 and a plus 2, minus 3, over 3x minus 1. Now the only way that we could simplify this would be if I could take this numerator and break it into two factors, and one of those factors would have to be 3x minus 1, so it would cancel the denominator. Well, if I build a multiply-add chart and I'm looking for numbers that would multiply to negative 3 and add to positive 3, that's impossible. The only numbers that multiply to negative 3 are negative 1 and 3, or negative 3 and 1, and neither of those will add to positive 3. So this cannot be factored, and since it cannot be factored, it cannot be simplified. So no, this one could not either. So it can't simplify, so that's all I have left. All right, example 4. Example number 4. Yes, we're looking for a common denominator first, but really what we should have said was our first step. Always your first step should be to factor everything. The examples I gave you for 1, 2, and 3 could not be factored. Nothing could factor from them, so we didn't have to do that step. From now on, you need to think, can I factor anything first? So we're going to factor everything we have first. 2x plus 6, I can take a 2 out, and I'm left with x plus 3. I can factor the 2 out. This first x doesn't factor, and x plus 3 doesn't factor. X squared plus 6x plus 9, two numbers that multiply to 9 and add to 6, x plus 3 and x plus 3. Okay, now, after we factor everything first, can you simplify either fraction? So still, before we actually add or we put our fractions together, before we do any of that, will anything simplify and just make our lives easier? Well, I see the first fraction, no. But the second fraction, I have an x plus 3 in the top and the bottom, so I can simplify that out. Okay, now, let's write down what we have left over because it's kind of messy. X over x plus 3 plus, I'm left with 2 on top, and x plus 3 on the bottom. Okay, so now that we've done that, now look and see, do you have a common denominator? So if we look at our denominator now, x plus 3, yes we do. So if yes we do, then our next step is to add the fractions. So we're going to say we have the denominator stays, and on top we have x plus 2. Okay, now, always ask yourself in the end, can you simplify further? We cannot. Now, some of you might want to say, oh yeah, cancel out the x's. You cannot cancel out the x's because they're stuck with a plus sign with the 2 and the 3. Up here, we could simplify the 9 and the 3 because there's no plus or minus signs. So then we could just divide stuff out. But if you have a plus and minus sign, you have to have the entire factor cancel with the entire factor. So even though they both have an x, not all 4 terms have an x, so this is as far as we can go, okay? Number 5. So I told you now what we're at. So we need to factor anything that can factor, so always think factor first. Okay, well, 3 minus 4x doesn't have anything in common, so I can't take anything out of that. X squared plus 3x minus 10. Two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to 3. I can say x plus 5 and x minus 2. Okay, then I have minus 2 over x plus 5, none of that cancels. Okay, so I can't simplify either fraction. So can you simplify? No, because 3x minus 4 isn't in the, I can't simplify any of that. Whoops. Okay, so next, we need to see if we have a common denominator. And we don't. So, but what we do have is our denominators have something in common. So they both have an x plus 5, but this first fraction is also being multiplied to x minus 2. So just like our very, very first fraction, if I could multiply by something that would make it the same, then I can go from there. So if we look at what we've got, if I multiplied this second fraction times x minus 2, then my denominators would both have the same two parts. So that's okay, and I can do that as long as I do it to the numerator also. So now what I have is I have 3 minus 4x over x plus 5x minus 2 minus 2 times x is 2x, 2 times negative 2 is minus 4 over x plus 5, x minus 2. So now I have common denominators, so if you don't have them, multiply to make it happen. Now that I have common denominators, now I can subtract. And remember, when you subtract, don't forget distribute negative 1. So I have 3 minus 4x minus 2x plus 4 all over x plus 5, x minus 2. Okay, now we are going to combine like terms to simplify our stuff. So really this is, I've got 3 plus 4 is 7. Negative 4x minus 2x is minus 6x over x plus 5, x minus 2. Okay, and I cannot simplify further because I can't factor 7 minus 6x, and that doesn't cancel with anything in the denominator. So I'm going to leave my answer like this. Now technically, I could FOIL the denominator and leave my answer as the entire x squared quadratic expression, but for today we're just going to leave it like that. All right, example 6. Example 6. First, factor everything. So if I'm looking at the negative 4x plus 2, I can take a negative 2 out of that, and then I'm left with 2x squared minus 1. On the denominator, x squared plus 9x minus 10, x plus 10, x minus 1, plus 3 over x plus 10. Okay, now, can you simplify either fraction? Well, I would need this whole factor 2x squared minus 1 to be in the denominator, and it's not. So knowing that that can't simplify, if it doesn't simplify, then it doesn't help me to be in a factored form anymore. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to go back to just negative 4x squared plus 2, because it doesn't help me to have it factored. But the denominator needs to stay factored because, so no, I couldn't simplify. Now I need to look for a common denominator. So the first denominator is x plus 10 times x minus 1. So if I take the x plus 10 I have and multiply it to x minus 1, then my denominators will be the same. But if I do that to the denominator, I have to do it to the numerator also. So now let's see what we've got. So we've got a negative 4x squared plus 2. Oh, I didn't mean to make that so big. Over x plus 10, x minus 1, plus 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 1 is minus 3. Over x plus 10, x minus 1. Okay, so now I have common denominators, so now I can add the fractions. So I have negative 4x squared plus 2 plus 3x minus 3 all over x plus 10 times x plus, minus 1. So we're just going to combine like terms in the top to finish this fraction. So I have a negative 4x squared plus 3x, or plus 2 and minus 3 will give us minus 1, all over x plus 10 times x minus 1. And there's nothing else I can do to simplify that because the top won't factor. So that is it. Remember, I could multiply the denominator out, but for today we're just going to leave it the same. All right, next. First, factor everything that can factor. So if I'm looking at this, I have 5x plus 1 does not factor. X squared minus 2x minus 3 does factor to x minus 3 times x plus 1. 5x minus 3 does not factor. X squared minus x minus 6 factors to x minus 3 and x plus 2. Okay, so now, can anything simplify from there? So we would need the same thing on top and bottom, and no, nothing will simplify. Now we're going to look for a common denominator. Well, if I look, they both share an x minus 3. But the first one is being multiplied to x plus 1, and the second one is being multiplied to x plus 2. So really I have three factors happening, x minus 3, x plus 1, and x plus 2. I need the denominator to have all three of those factors. So I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 2, and I'm going to multiply this one times x plus 1. And if I do that, now they both have all three parts. So if I multiply the denominator x plus 2, I need to do that the same up here. And the same here, multiply x plus 1. Okay, so my common denominator is x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 1. You have to have all factors represented in both denominators, all right? Then from there, we're going to go ahead and multiply the numerators out, which means you're going to FOIL them. So x plus 2 times 5x plus 1 is going to be 5x squared plus 10x plus x, so plus 11x plus 2 all over x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 1, minus 5x minus 3 times x plus 1 is going to FOIL to 5x squared plus 2x minus 3 all over x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 1. Okay, so now that I have a common denominator, now I'm going to subtract. And when you subtract, don't forget, distribute negative 1. So really, I have a negative 1 here times all of this. So I have 5x squared plus 11x plus 2 divided by x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 11, or plus 1. Okay, minus 5x squared minus 2x plus 3. Now combine like terms. So I have a 5x squared minus a 5x squared. So those are gone. So those cancel. 11x minus 2x is 9x. And plus 2 plus 3 is plus 5. Over x plus 2, x minus 3, x plus 1. Okay, now that does not simplify further because 9x minus 5 cannot be factored, and 9x minus 5 is not also represented in the denominator, so that is all I can do. All right, last example. Here we are mixing division with addition and subtraction. So we're going to take what we know about multiplying and dividing rational expressions. We're going to put it together with our new found knowledge of adding and subtracting. what you need to think of first is you need to think of this as like two separate problems. So we're going to take the numerator, add it. And then we're going to take the denominator, subtract it. Then we're going to put them back into a division, okay? So first, let's take the numerator. So we have x plus 4 plus 3 over 2. So let's say first we're going to simplify the numerator and denominator separately. I always spell separately wrong. Separately, I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. So x plus 4 or x plus 2. So I need a common denominator. I can turn 2 into 4 if I multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply by 2. So now I have x over 4 plus 6 over 4. So keep your denominator of 4, and you have x plus 6 on top. So that is what our numerator simplifies to. Okay, now if we take the denominator, 2 minus 3 over x. Right now I have 2 over 1. If I multiply that to x, then I'd have x, and that would be the same. So I'm going to do the same up top. So I have 2x over x minus 3 over x. Keep the x, and you have 2x minus 3. That's the denominator. All right, now we're going to rebuild this division fraction. So now I know that I have x plus 6 over 4 divided by, excuse me, 2x minus 3 over x. Okay, now remember, division is really multiplying by the reciprocal. So this really becomes x plus 6 over 4 times x over 2x minus 3. All right. Now, when we're multiplying like this, remember I told you don't actually multiply, build a single fraction. I have a factor of x plus 6, a factor of x, a factor of 4, and a factor of 2x minus 3. None of that is the same on top and bottom, so nothing simplifies. So we're just going to distribute all of our stuff to make it a little cleaner looking, okay? So as we simplify the numerator and denominator separate, then we put them back into the division problem. All right, and now then we went from there. So x times x, x squared. X times 6, 6x. 4 times 2x, 8x. And 4 times negative 3, negative 12. And that is all I can do with that. That's it.